Next time that my therapist asks me how I'm going, I'm gonna answer her that the only thing that I have listened for the past week was Evermore on repeat. You know. Hi, hello, how's it going? It's Lo. I don't even know how to begin this video. Once you start a booktube channel, the main idea is that you will read. And when you read, you will talk to the camera about the books that you have read, and then you'll discuss them. Now, I came to a point where I'm like, what exactly am I supposed to do if I don't read? In the month of April and in the month of March, I really didn't do much reading, as the majority of you may know or may not know, because all I've learned so far is that gringos are very unaware of things and how they work in the world, but Brazil had a very serious second wave of COVID, and just as India is having now. The situation in India is dire now. It will get worse in the next couple of weeks, just as Brazil got really worse. Y'all are talking about having shots and going out and buying books and doing vlogs outside, and I'm sitting here trying not to die. And you know, sometimes you are in a country where 4,000 people are dying every day, some of them your family and some of them your friends, and the president is an absolute fucking moron, and therefore you will not get a vaccine in the foreseeable future. Sometimes reading is just not enough escapism. Sometimes you just need to resort to your teenage years coping mechanisms of reading Marvel fanfic and watching Marvel movies over and over again, because that's what I've been doing for the past couple of months. So, cheers to that. Anyway, I didn't come here today to discuss the global state of imperialist affairs, where countries in the global north are hoarding vaccines and resources, and everyone is going back to their daily lives, while we in the global south are like, guess I'll die. I actually managed to read a couple of things in March and April, less in March, and so I decided to combine the two and make this wrap up today. So, as you can see, I'm very happy. I am in the best mood. I think everyone who comes around me, thank God I'm not going out, because I just radiate this energy of being done with everything and everyone. I'm sure I'm a delight to be around as of now, but that's what you're all getting today. In the month of March and April, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books combined. So roughly 4 books every month, but March I only actually read 2 books. And so the majority of my reading was done in April. To start the month of March, I started reading The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This was one of my most hyped books. I was so excited to get my hands on it. I really wanted it. I was like, I just need to get my fingers on this book, because as we all know, I love witches. I am in love with witches. I love the idea, the concept, the stereotype of witches. I'm just over the moon in love with the idea. I think it has so much potential, and I thought that The Year of the Witching was going to fulfill all of that. And as Taylor Swift said, this book got wasted, like all of its potential. Basically, this story is about this young girl called Emmanuel. And Emmanuel lives in this very Puritan-like society. Her mother was kind of disgraced, and her mother kind of dated an outcast, and the outcasts are darker skinned. So there's a very interesting component of racial aspects to this community as well. And Emmanuel is raised by her family, who were usually upstanding members of society, but because of what Emmanuel's mothers did, and because of Emmanuel's birth, they kind of lost all of the standing that they had in this society, and they kind of live in disgrace. And so Emmanuel kind of tries to navigate that. And one day she goes to the woods, the dark woods that exist near her house, and they say that there are witches in the dark wood, and they are evil creatures and stuff. And Emmanuel just feels this pull towards them, and she goes. When she gets there, she has her first period, and this kind of begins a series of events that are like plagues. And so starts the so-called Year of the Witching. The premise of this book is amazing. Reminds me a lot of my absolute favorite movie of all times, and that is The Witch, or The Vivitch, as the majority of my friends calls it, with Anna Taylor-Joy. I love The Witch so fucking goddamn much. I love that movie. I literally, if I had to watch a single movie all day, every day, it will be The Witch. It's mind-blowing. It's amazing. I love that movie so goddamn much. That is very interesting to me. The figure of that witch who exists opposing to this patriarchal system, for me, is great. And the reason why this is relevant is because I thought Emmanuel was going to be angry. But it got to halfway through the book, and Emmanuel just became a fucking liberal. You know liberals. Like, if we've gotten together to this point and you still don't know this, hi, hello, how's it going? I'm Lou. I'm a fucking socialist. It really annoyed me that halfway through this book, Emmanuel just, forgot the entire history of trauma that not only the people that her father belonged to, like the outlanders or the outskirts of the town, I don't remember precisely the term now, but that just kind of went nowhere, and she kind of forgot the sort of oppression that they faced, but also because the witches were actually evil. They were truly evil, and so the story kind of teased that they weren't necessarily as evil, and that maybe the story that was being told about them was twisted to fit the society's molds, which is key baseline witch story, and it truly is the underlying story of witch burnings. I am once again recommending to everyone to read Caliban and the Witch by Siva Federici, because it discusses precisely this moment. In the year of the witching, the witches actually just are evil, and they are actually just wretched creatures, and so I feel like in order to save face and not to really engage with the difficulty that you need to topple down this entire system, and also denying Emmanuel the complexity of being a morally gray character who is capable of doing immense evil but chooses to be good. And I think that this was not necessarily the choice that she was given in this book. So the book really plateaued around the halfway mark, and I really did not like the ending. It really did feel like really kumbaya, and everybody just gets along. Emmanuel bakes a cake and everybody just gets along fine, and the witches were actually evil and stuff, and that's not, I don't know if that's on my expectations, but I think the story had so much potential precisely because Alexis Henderson can work with the racial aspect of it so well, that the fact that it kind of went nowhere was So basically, I gave The Year of the Witching 3 out of 5 stars. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up the next installments in the series, and I'm still on the lookout for books about witches that are fucking angry, witches that are seething, witches that just want to fuck shit up. I am just looking for those. That's all I want, and still I cannot find it. It's like writers are afraid of making women be deranged, and all I want is a story about a deranged witch, because in this economy, who isn't deranged? I would like some representation, so, The next book that I read in the past couple of months was this one. This is Pensamento feminista, hoje, perspectivas decoloniais, or current feminist thought, decolonial perspectives. I considered a bit if I should bring this book or not to this wrap-up, but I really feel like it because this has become my feminist Bible, as you can see, by the sheer amount of tabbing that I did. This is a lifesaver. Basically, this is a collection of essays by amazing decolonial feminists who discuss a lot of things from, feminist critique and feminist epistemology and feminist methodology and human rights and feminism, but from a decolonial perspective. This is a Brazilian book, and I'm not sure that this exists anywhere else, and the majority of the texts that exist here, I'm not sure they're translated as well. And so I am going on an effort to try to find and identify works by the authors that exist in this book that are actually translated, because I feel like they are so important and those voices need to be heard so badly. But this book completely, watershed between what my thesis was and what my thesis is becoming. If my thesis was becoming everything, because not even writing I'm able to do. So, that's fun. If you want, to do this research as well, and you want to find, what are the authors that are the most relevant in the decolonial debate, especially in the Latin American decolonial feminist debate. These are the names. So if you want to search for them. Amongst those, I really, really liked Cláudia de Lima Costa, Julieta Paredes Carvajal. Julieta, by the way, who is Aymara of Bolivian descent. So if you came to my channel because of my Woven in Moonlight thread, hi, hello, yes, Julieta Carvajal is actually Bolivian and of Aymaran descent. So if you could give her some love instead of Isabel Ibanez, that would be great. Lelia Gonzalez, never gets wrong, amazing. I really loved Maria Lugones, Marnia Lazreg as well, Ochi Curiel, Orieronke Oyewumi, and Yuderquis Espinosa Minhoso. If I'm butchering that Spanish pronunciation, I speak Portuguese, and it's a different language. But those are the authors that I really like the most in this collection, and I feel like if you're looking for decolonial feminists to study, I will probably do a video on them sooner than later, but this is a place to start the research. So yeah, I love it. I love this book. Decolonial Feminist is amazing. So the next book on the list is, oh, yes. Okay, so the next book on the list is Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley. You will remember that earlier this year, I read The Dark Tide, and I was very disheartened because I really wanted a sapphic fantasy romance that I just enraptured me, and I really wanted to read it, and The Dark Tide just wasn't it. As we all recall, that book was high nonsense, but I found my sapphic fantasy romance. I found it. Oh my god, this book is so good. Oh my god, this book is so good. Okay, wait. Okay. A Sweet and Bitter Magic follows this girl called Tamsin, and Tamsin is a mage, and she has been cursed to not feel love. And so she's unable to love anyone, and she survives by being able to take other people's loves when she does services for them. And so she's very bitter. She's very angry at her predicament and how every situation in her life has gone up. And then she meets this girl who's basically just a ray of sunshine, and they have to team up to try to find who is the witch who has cursed the land to suffer a series of effects, almost like a pandemic, which was ironic considering that I was reading it during a pandemic. The premise of this book is very simple. The execution of this book, also very simple. Is this a cliche story? Yes. If this was a straight couple, I would have yeeted this book into the sun. But it's a sapphic book, and so there's a sapphic yearning, and I ate that shit up. I loved this book so much. It was insane. I don't even know what to say. It's the sapphic goodness and love that I deserved. Tamsin just trying to fight it, that, am I in love, am I not in love? And her love interest, whose name I forgot, but I love her because she's amazing. She's such a ray of sunshine. And, my memory isn't really good these days, but y'all got what I meant. And their two together are amazing. And there's so many moments of sapphic yearning. And, was this book predictable? Yes, it was predictable. Was this book cliche? Yes, it was cliche. Do I give a shit? I do not give a shit. I ate that shit up. So, everything that The Dark Tide was not, this book was. I love this book. So if you need, a sapphic fantasy book that is standalone and that you can read to warm your cold little dark dry heart, I would strongly recommend A Sweet and Bitter Magic because it's really fucking good. And I don't even know what to say more about this book other than you should pick it up. Do you like lesbians? Because I like lesbians. Do you like sapphics? I love sapphics. I'm a sapphic one myself. So I just love this book. This book is really good. So I don't know what else to say. This has been a shit review with no coherence at all. I'm just so excited, and this book got 5 out of 5 stars because it's so fucking good. I loved it a lot. The next book that I read in April, I actually talked in one of my previous videos, and that was Enchanting the Elven Mage. I DNF'd this book because this book was garbage, and you can see more of my thoughts at the video that I'm gonna link in the cards up above. This book was shit, and I hated it, and I gave it 1 out of 5 stars, even though I DNF'd it, because I don't think anyone should read this book because it's just high garbage. Don't do it. it don't. The next book that I read in the month of April was this bad boy over here. This very old, battered copy of my favorite book of all times, and that was Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. I bought a new copy to read it again and annotate it because my best friend, Sophia, actually gave this book a read and loved it. And I decided that, this copy has seen better days and I need a better copy of it because I love this book so much and I want to annotate it and tab it. So for those of you who are unaware, Slaughterhouse-Five is considered a modern classic. Basically, this is a book that is almost autobiographical in its way. It's told through the perspective of a character, but this character has gone through the same things that Kurt Vonnegut has gone through when he was a prisoner of war during World War II. Kurt Vonnegut was actually held prisoner in a city in Germany called Dresden. And he was held in a slaughterhouse that was the fifth slaughterhouse in the farm, hence Slaughterhouse-Five. And because the slaughterhouse was really deep into the ground, so when the Americans bombed the city of Dresden, which was the biggest non-nuclear bombing in World War II history, the slaughterhouse kind of provided some shelter. And so one day he woke up and left the slaughterhouse and the entire city was gone. And so he wrote this book because he kind of wanted to deal with his feelings surrounding Dresden and surrounding the entirety of the war. And so he writes about this man called Billy Pilgrim. This book is usually considered a sci-fi book, anti-war sci-fi book, because this book was published in 1969 and, Vietnam War was raging on and was definitely an anti-war book. But this book uses a subterfuge and a narrative device. That is, Billy Pilgrim eventually is this man who goes to war and goes through the same things that Kurt Vonnegut goes through. And he is abducted by aliens. And he is abducted by aliens called the Trefamodorians. And the Trefamodorians don't see time the way as humans do. The way that he describes it is it's not like we see time as a linear progression. The Trefamodorians see time as they see a landscape. They see everything at the same time. So if a person is dead now, that person is fine in another moment. So therefore, there's not really much reason to be sad because that person is fine at a different point in time. And so they don't really need to mourn that loss. And then every person that dies, the only thing that they say is, so it goes. And Billy Pilgrim is abducted by those aliens, and because of this, his permanence in the continuum of space and time becomes a little wonky, and so he lives his life not linearly, but he goes back and forth in time, living his life in different aspects. A lot of people consider this to be sci-fi. This is not sci-fi. This is just trauma. The idea that Billy Pilgrim came up with this very cohesive idea of what a society that doesn't see time and etc., because to accept the fact that all of those people that he saw die are actually dead would be more damaging. And so the reason why he comes up with this, there's this part in the book that he says, if no one is dead, truly dead, because everyone is alive in the past, therefore everything is beautiful and nothing hurts. So this is a form of escapism. Kurt Vonnegut tells the story as a way to say there are no Trefamodorians, everyone who's dead will stay dead, and it's impossible for you to grasp the sheer horror of this experience. And so this book for me is one of my favorite books of all times, precisely because Kurt Vonnegut is able to, very few words, this book is not big at all, it's very short, but there are so many parts in this book that just feel like you're getting punched. And even so, because with the progression of time, certain things acquire new meanings. As an example of that, there is this one part of this book where he is talking to, I think it's a movie star or something, and he's talking to the movie star about wars, and that he's writing an anti-war book. And so this dialogue happens. Over the years, people I've met have often asked me what I'm working on, and I've usually replied that the main thing was a book about Dresden. I said that to Harrison Starr, the movie maker, one time, and he raised his eyebrows and inquired, "Is it an anti-war book?" "Yes," I said, "I guess." You know what I said to people when I hear they're writing anti-war books? "No. What do you say, Harrison Starr?" I say, "Why don't you write an anti-glacier book instead?" What he meant, of course, was that there will always be wars, that they were as easy to stop as glaciers. I believe that too. And even if wars didn't keep coming like glaciers, there will still be plain old death. We're losing the fucking glaciers, whatever. And wars haven't stopped coming. And so this book packs so many punches, and it's one of my absolutely favorite works of literature of all times. This is probably going to be another read further on this year because I ordered a new copy and I paid a pretty good damn penny for it, but I just need it. This is one of my highly recommended books of all times. So please read Slaughterhouse-Five. I love this book. Like, this book is amazing. Just read it. 5 out of 5 stars. Incredible. So the next book that I read in the month of April was this one. This is The Book of Embraces by Eduardo Galeano. Again, another favorite. Look at the tabs. I love this. You probably might know Eduardo Galeano from this bad boy right here. This is The Open Veins of Latin America. This is my new copy. I read this on my dad's old copy, so I need to give it a reread to actually tab this book. But when I read The Open Veins of Latin America, the feeling that I got, and I'm not sure if everyone got this feeling as well, but I got this feeling very prominently because I am Latin American, and that was anger. I was very fucking mad. I was really, really angry when I finished reading this book. And I feel like this book should come together with this book because they are two halves of the same experience, and I feel like they really should be read together. Basically, The Book of Embraces is a book with very, very, very short stories. Like, this is a story and this is another story. Extremely short stories that Eduardo Galeano has gathered while he was traveling throughout Latin America. And so this is a book that tells not about the oppression that we as Latin Americans have faced, and not about the exploitation and the exploration and the imperialism and the veins bleeding out and filling the pockets of North America and Europe, but what makes us good. Basically, The Book of Embraces is a book that Eduardo Galeano wrote while he was on exile from the military dictatorship of Uruguay, and he collected short stories and, you know, little snippets of everyday life. And here in Brazil, I don't know how it's called in Spanish, but here in Brazil we call them causos. Like those stories that your grandparents and your uncles and aunts will usually tell. They're usually like very overblown, you know, in scope, and, you know, very embellished in what the facts really are. But you listen to them anyways because, you know, it's your family. And so this is also very formative of Latin American experience. And so Eduardo Galeano kind of gathered them in here. And so this is a book that really speaks to not Latin America as the object of oppression, as the source of many natural resources that are not necessarily enjoyed by us Latin Americans, but us as a people who are resilient, who are happy, who are joyful, who love deeply, who are creative, and who suffer deeply too, and who's experienced like the depths of pain and sorrow, but are also extremely resilient and extremely proud of where they come from. So I really do feel like this is a book that should be read with The Open Veins of Latin America, precisely because this is a book that made me proud of being Latin American, made me proud of my heritage, made me proud of where I come from, made me proud of my people, and made me proud of the love that I just feel for this land, this continent, and this people. So if you are Latin American, I highly recommend this. And if you want to know more about Latin America, The Book of Embraces is probably one of your best places to start. But you do have to read this too. Like, read the two together, okay? But Latin America 101 by Eduardo Galeano, Open Veins of Latin America, and The Book of Embraces. The next book that I read in the month of April was Black Sun by Rebecca Runhorse. This book was really dope. I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast reading this. Hi, this is voiceover low. I forgot to add that this book was a buddy read with Delphi from the Oracle of Delphi. I'm gonna link her channel in the description below. Yeah. Scialla could fucking step on me. Scialla and Serapio are... I love them so much. I don't even know. Like, I am so fucking out of it. I just love them so much. I love my murder mermaid so goddamn much. I have no words for the two of them. So basically this book follows this fantasy world that is based on many pre-Columbian societies that existed in the Americas. Very thoroughly researched. I could identify many societies that I have studied before that existed before, everything was stolen from them. The way that Rebecca Roanhorse actually worked them into the story with this depth of world building and descriptions of places and things, and it was just incredible, and I absolutely fucking loved it. I have a hard time trying to explain what the plot is kind of about. It's about intergenerational trauma. What more can I say? I don't really know how to explain this. Black Sun for me was a 4-star read, and I think that this is something that is just personal and particular to me, because I kind of got to the realization that I don't necessarily like multi points of view if those points of view are not connected to the same story in the same way. So basically in Black Sun, you're following Shiala and Serapio, but you're also following Narampa. And the two stories really do come together, and they're complementary to one another, but they don't take place at the same time, and they don't talk about the same plot line. So there are two different plot lines going on. And I don't think that really works for me, because I feel like every time that I start picking up on a plot line, the rhythm of the story and the pace of the story is cut short by a chapter with another plot line. That is also very interesting. Like, both plot lines of this book were incredibly interesting, but I felt like the flow and the pace of the story of both stories kept being cut in short by those chapters that were by different points of views and that did not talk about the main plot of the story. So that kind of like stopped a little bit on my pace. It took me a little to get through this book, because every time that I would pick up on the reading, it was like someone killed my vibe. And when I got on the vibe again, someone would kill my vibe again. So there was something about the format of the story. It's similar to King of Scars, where I really liked Nina's plotline, and I really liked Nikolai and Zoya's plotline, but the fact that the two of them were together in the same book kept cutting the flow of the story, of the two main parts of the story, and so it was very difficult and complicated for me to actually get on the pace, and I feel like Black Sun has the same issue. Other than that, I have absolutely nothing else to say about this book other than it was amazing. The plot building was incredible. The world building was incredible. The characters were amazing. This is a book that uses gender and sexuality in a way that is very interesting, because it naturalizes things that were naturalized in pre-Columbian societies, like third genders, like different relationships between people, in a way that, what if those societies were able to flourish in their own right. And also the worst thing that could happen to a teak, like the worst curse of a teak, is may you fall in love with a man, and I absolutely fucking love that. So Black Sun, 4 or 5 stars, highly recommended, amazing. We'll be looking forward to the next one. Mas mamãe, você tá com ciúme do gato? Você tá com ciúme do gato? É mesmo? Canta assim. Ela já não gosta mais de mim, mas eu gosto dela mesmo assim. Que pena, que pena.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Okay, so the last book that I read in April was This Bridge Called My Back, Writings by Radical Women of Color, organized by Cherry Moriaga and Gloria Andaluzia. I am conflicted about this book. Basically, this book is a collection of essays, writings, poems, and stories about women of color in the United States. And this is a foundational work in feminist scholarship. Like, this is an incredibly groundbreaking book that has set many standards and it really kicked off the start of the conversation of intersectionality, truly, on, how different aspects will affect different lives of women of color differently. And so this is a very important book that needs to be read and should be read. And if you are a feminist, you have to read. It's incredibly important and instrumental that you read this book in order to understand properly what women of color are talking to. What is my issue with this book? This book was written in 1979, if I'm not mistaken. It was published in 1979 or published a little bit later, and in the 80s. And at the time, what we would nowadays call decolonial feminism was at the time called third world feminism. I've explained before why I don't like the term third world, but in the context of this book, I like it even less because the third world feminists that this book is talking about are women of color in the context of the United States. And that is not a thing, because third world feminists are feminists who are still living in the countries that are suffering from American imperialism. And no matter where you are in the United States, and this might be controversial, and I've gotten blocked over this many times over on Twitter, but this is still my standard. If you are a person living in the United States, you still benefit from American imperialism, and it doesn't matter who you are. And so for you to have a collection of works talking about third world women living in the context of the United States and not never necessarily addressing how living in the United States also provides some privilege, is, for me, feels like this is not your term to adopt. The United States forced the term third world country on us, and so this is not the place of an American to take back. If a person from the global south wants to take the term third world country back, that's a-okay by me. This is not something I feel particularly comfortable doing, but that's their own right. I don't feel like people of color in the context of the United States should be able to reclaim that, mostly because as the years passed and that term eventually fell out of favor, that eventually became post-colonial and eventually decolonial critiques, which are not necessarily the same, but more of an evolution of thought. So when you're reading this book, this has to be positioned historically, and positioned historically in a way that in the 1980s was probably okay for you as a woman of color in the United States to call yourself a third world country feminist or third world feminist, or call yourself the third world within. But nowadays that's just very fucking rude. And if you want to understand what privilege is, it is like this. It doesn't matter how fucked up living in the United States is. As of now, you can walk into a drugstore and get a shot against COVID that is 95% effective. I am living in the global south. My mom is immunocompromised because of a cancer treatment, and we have no idea when she will be able to get her shot. My 80-year-old grandmother only got the vaccine the other month, and the vaccine that we're using is a Chinese vaccine because we didn't have access to any other, because countries in the global north have hoarded all of the vaccines that they could find, and the vaccine that we have access to is only 60% effective at best case scenario. So this is what privilege is. Privilege is that no matter how fucked up your life experience in the United States is, you are able to go to CVS and get something that will make you be able to live your life normally for the rest of the year. I have no idea when my life is going to go back to normal. And this is privilege. And this is not even talking about the sheer amount of access that people in the global north have to just consumption items and things they can do, and electronics, and just material and information that we in the global south really do not have access to. And I'm speaking from a very privileged position as a person who is in a well-paying job, and even so, it is extremely difficult for me to get the same access that a person living in the United States has. You guys have no idea how fucking expensive a MacBook is in Brazil. And the reason why the majority of the things that you buy in the United States are so affordable is because other countries in the global south are getting fucked over in the head, getting no labor laws whatsoever, getting fucked up economically because they need to produce something that is cheap for you to consume. And so I feel like ignoring the fact that living in the United States gives you access to privileges that derive from imperialism is extremely instrumental. And a lot of people have hated me for this. This is the hill I will die on, because it is very fucking unfair to see people my age getting vaccinated in the United States, knowing the United States and Europe have hoarded all of the vaccines, and knowing that I'm only living the hell that I'm living today because of American interference in our politics since 2016 and since 1964 and since way before, that doesn't allow us to be better than we are right now. And this political choice has cost us 400,000 lives. And so all of that, for me, just weighs heavily when a person from the United States decides to reclaim something that is a mark of the difficulty that the life that I live in. And so I feel like, you know, calling yourself the third world within is kind of a slap in the face, because, you know, the third world without is still waiting for an opportunity to be recognized as people who are worthy of carrying on living. I did say that I was in a very bad mood today. This was my wrap up. I hope things get better in the coming months, because... Anyways, what was the best book that you guys read in the last month? And have you read any of the books that I've mentioned in this list? Let me know in the comments down below. So yeah, this was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.